Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. So earlier this month, the Indian Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, was on a key visit to Russia. The primary agenda of the trip was to conclude the supply of the Voronezh weapon detection radars and to commission the jointly developed Indo-Russian naval warship, the INS Tushil. With Mr. Putin scheduled to visit India next year, ties between New Delhi and Moscow will only go on the up and up. However, a key statement made by our RM did catch everyone's attention. He said that India will continue to further and deepen its ties with Moscow despite external pressures. No prizes for guessing that these pressures are coming from none other than the United States of America. In a situation where President Trump, with efforts from 2017 to 2020, had created a firm foundation to catapult our bilateral ties into the stratosphere, the outgoing president, Mr. Biden, with his blunders and strategically self-destructive foreign policy, has thrown India as far away from the US as we were during the Cold War era. But what went so horribly wrong as to create such a massive rift between countries who were said to be the greatest of allies against global terrorism and Chinese expansionism? Well, let's dive right into it now. Way back in 2019, provocative and unwarranted statements on Indian actions in Kashmir and passing of the CAA by presidential nominees such as Joe Biden and Ms. Kamala Harris of the Democrat Party did give us the indication that Indo-US ties will see turbulence in case the Democrats were to win the presidency in 2020. And that did happen eventually. In November 2020, Mr. Biden did defeat the then President Donald Trump. The ties were reasonably okay till the end of 2021, but a massive fracturing took place in February 2022 between New Delhi and Washington when Russia launched its military operation in Ukraine. The Western Alliance, the US, NATO, and their proxies all over the world were counting on India to betray Russia and join the pro-US camp during the conflict. India, being an independent and strategically autonomous nation, and most of all, an ethical nation, did not forget its relationship with Russia, which is steeped in history, steeped in a common alignment of interests and a past of help from Moscow when we needed it the most. India did not betray Russia at all and downright refused to condemn Russia's military action, which, by the way, tried to secure Moscow's own borders, so there was no aggression as such back in Feb 2022. In the coming months, India and Russia's bilateral trade grew lock, stock and barrel, quite literally, because at the end of 2021, our trade was valued at just $8 billion US. As of now, it's $65 billion US, an eightfold increase within the span of 3 years. This number is scheduled to hit $100 billion by the end of the decade itself. This obviously irked the West, since a defiant and resilient India has been a thorn in the side of the US deep state since Washington's traumatic defeat back in 1971 during the Bangladesh Liberation War. Resorting to its typical bullying tactics, provocative statements were made raising concerns over these imports. Diplomats from all Western Bloc nations and their allies voiced protests against New Delhi over our independent and self-interest driven foreign policy. There was not a single media interaction or press conference with the Western press where our foreign minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar, was not bombarded with the same repetitive ad hominem, emotionally loaded questions, questioning our ethics, our so-called morals, or our neutrality. But Mr. Jaishankar, being the seasoned diplomat that he is, stood tall in the face of these uncomfortable questions, and he put these hypocrites in their place. The US, UK, Canada, Australia, Japan, all these countries were in one tone condemning and bullying India for our relationship with Moscow. When they realized that we'll refuse to budge in the face of these statements and their statements hold no value for us at all, they tightened the screws a bit more. They reopened the Pakistani option. Now, we must realize that Pakistan has always been a goon for hire and a ploy to keep us distracted in the subcontinent area. Even though it was created literally a day before us and shares the same culture and language as us, its foreign policy is diametrically opposite to ours. It's always looking for a higher bidder, a better deal, someone who can buy it at a higher price. And given the fact that it has a history of hostility and constant tensions with us, coupled with a 3,000 kilometer long border, made it a perfect ploy for the Americans. The Americans invested $450 billion to upgrade Pakistan's depleting F-16 jet fleet, and they exited Islamabad from the FATF grey list, thus totally diverging from Donald Trump's policy of decoupling from Pakistan. Not just that, there was another massive attempt to bully India at a diplomatic level. The US propped up one of its greatest stooges, Canada, to undertake a diplomatic war against India. In a clear attempt to intimidate us, Justin Trudeau, the darling of the global left and an asset of the deep state, went as far as accusing India of being involved in the assassinations of Canadian citizens. And when asked for evidence, he remained mum. He also did not have anything to say about the alleged Chinese interference in his own election victory, but used our so-called involvement as a ploy to distract from the same. This triggered a total meme fest. Canada today is no more than a laughing stock, and it has become a more of a joke in the eyes of Indian citizens than Pakistan. So congratulations to Mr. Trudeau for that. The diplomatic fallout from this was so massive so as to cause New Delhi to expel Canadian diplomats from its soil. We even recalled our own in October this year, thus adding Ottawa to the notorious list of nations such as China, Pakistan and Fiji with whom we have had such episodes. This brings me to my next point. Now, if the US sees us as a key strategic partner and as an ally, they need to respect our territorial integrity. But what has happened over the past few years is the exact opposite of it. There has been a sudden surge in Khalistani sentiments abroad, primarily in the Five Eyes nations of America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and Great Britain. There has been nothing but arson on our diplomatic missions, open threats to bomb Indian airlines and sporting events, and even physical attacks on our diplomats have gone unhindered and totally allowed in countries like America and Canada. New Zealand, a step below that, held a referendum for this non-entity, this fictional non-entity called Khalistan in November this year. We can clearly see a CIA-led plot by the Five Eyes group to spread nothing but anarchy and balkanization in India. New Delhi has raised concerns about these elements and has sought extradition of certain individuals, but these requests have been regularly turned down by the government involved over there. So this causes a trust deficit. This can never be conducive for a good long-term relationship. If you do not respect our territorial integrity, how do you prove the point of allegedly calling us your allies? And how can we have a trustworthy relationship with you? So now we'll continue this series in the next part. In the next part, it's a very important video as to how the US is trying to sabotage our defense industry and hamper our armed forces through its typical tactics. That was all for today, my friends. I hope I could give you a decent insight into the issue involved over here. Thank you so much, friends. Jai Hind. Take care.